Hello, my name is John Reynolds. On this episode of Extraordinary Life Stories, I'm talking to Karen Ellis. Karen is the managing partner and head of sport at global insurance brokerage Gallagher. Karen founded Ellis Clouds in 2010 and established it as a leading independent Lloyd's broker, specialising in high-risk sports, plus companies operating in high-risk territories across the globe. During her career, Karen has successfully managed some of the largest and most complex sporting claims on behalf of global clients. Karen herself is a self-confessed sports fan with a particular interest in motorsport. I want to know more about her journey in business spanning over 4 decades, and in particular her experience as a leading lady in a male-dominated world. I'm really looking forward to talking with Karen. Karen, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me, who is Karen Ellis?
It's a good question. Karen Ellis is a mum, having had a son late in life, spent too much time building a career, and then my lovely husband came along. What do? I'm an insurance broker. I manage risk. I'm probably in the sexy end of insurance, being sport and entertainment, because insurance is pretty dull and a numbers game primarily. But I'm a fixer. I love putting people together, which now shows my contact list around the world and who we mix with and who we put together. That is all about business development and doing the right thing for the firm or whoever you're working with at the time. So yeah, a mum, do a lot at home for the family, try and find time for me, that's always bottom of the list, a wife. And I love my job, so my passion, my work is my life, and my father always said I was wedded to it, and he was probably right.
Where did it all start? What did a young Karen want to be when you were growing up?
Well, I loved sport growing up. My parents were quite sporty, particularly my mother, and I spent every moment I could. I was in every team, captain the school team.
Any particular sport you excelled in?
Football.
Okay.
Weirdly, before women's football, always played in boys' teams, hockey, netball, all of those things in mainstream secondary schools to county level, for hockey anyway. And I loved it, playing it and watching it. So that was my life, going to school, working hard. And then I left school at 16 after O-levels. There was no chat about university back in the day. It was jobs and sixth forms. Our school was just building a sixth form. So I went to the city because my friends were going up into banking and insurance, where, I went for 7 interviews and got 5 jobs. It was amazing back then. And then as soon as I started, my passion actually was sport, and I then wanted to go and be a PE teacher, a sports teacher.
Okay. So
I told my boss I was leaving, and I got a place at sixth form. And then, having spent 4 or 5 months earning money and building out a career in the city, I thought, well, actually, that's quite handy, having your own money and going out to play. And I didn't go on to further education, and I dropped it. But the rest is history, given the career path that then has come about since then.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have gone into teaching.
That's interesting. There was also a young entrepreneurial side to you, which we'll come on to later. But the fact that you said, like the feeling of making the money and perhaps instead of going education route, forge your way into business. And tell me about that, because there's the element of the fact that we're going to fast forward to what you're doing now and the career you've had. But to use that term, glass ceilings, as a woman in business, how have you pushed through and been formidable in that space?
I think there's several answers to that. One of the reasons I didn't go off back to sixth form and into teaching was because I seemed to have lucked out by choosing the job that had some incredibly extraordinary people in it. There were 3 people in the Lloyd's broker I worked in, and of all the jobs that I got when I went for the interviews, nobody will ever believe this of me, being quite reserved and a bit shy, and it was a small firm. A lot of the others had big trading floors, and it was really ruthless. And I also have a hearing impediment, so that's quite difficult in a noisy room. So I was a bit anxious about that. So I picked this small firm where I was interviewed by one of the most influential people in my life and the quirkiest woman ever, who was jack of all trades and the company secretary and connected to the boss. and we were doing aviation insurance. So I walked into this office, which was filled with antiques and mahogany desks, and a very significant boss and distinguished gent. And I thought, that's the one for me. And they took me under their wing, and we all worked as a team to build that firm, which grew incredibly quickly. And it was really interesting and fun. So
Awesome.
That's where it started. And why did Tim Clews was the man at the time? Why did he give me these opportunities in the 80s and 90s? He threw me right in the deep end at everything. I did everything in the back office. He had an amazing command of the English language, and I typed all of his letters, thousands and thousands of them. He never repeated the same. They were chatty. We were into filmmaking and insured all the kit for the most famous filmmakers around the world at the time. He had a passion for Formula One, so he went off racing with his photographer mates, brought back a bunch of business cards, and it was my job to follow them up. And it went from there. And so I think he giving me the opportunity, and the other lady who was amazing. She taught me more about life than everybody in this room, I can tell you, because I'd had quite a narrow life at that point. So, and anybody that knows that era, and I've worked with some amazing people, will smile when they hear about and know the people I'm talking about. It was a lot of fun, but very hard work. I worked 6 days a week. I was doing everything. But I think that back in the day, that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And that
Graft.
Yes, and that era, and you learn that from your parents and grandparents. Not that people don't work hard now, but it is different, and it's quite prescriptive. I was allowed to just go and do it, make it happen, and I've got that personality and drive. And I used the analogy once when somebody said, "Why do you do it?" A bit like you. And there's the angel on one shoulder that says, "Enough, you've achieved enough." And the devil's on the other going, "Go again, go again." And it's like, no, not again. It's just, I've done it. And then you go, actually, I can. And you do. And I don't know what causes that drive in me.
No, it's obviously there, and it's still there now. You can see the twinkle in your eye.
It burns, yeah. It's been fantastic.
So you mentioned the Formula One contacts. It's a massive part of your life, and that's a real interest of mine. So tell me what and how that developed.
Yes, so one of the first motor racing risks that we became involved with, and this was 2-3 years into my life in insurance, and it was pretty unregulated insurance then. Okay. So underwriters and insurers would, if you were mates with them, and it's all relationship led even now. Tim Clews was a character, and he could go and get underwriters to write anything. And Sterling Moss asked Tim to insure him at Brands Hatch in a celebrity race in a Talbot Sunbeam. I've got quite an amazing memory. I can remember all this stuff. And he said, "Oh, I'm not sure we can do that." And he did. And he said, "I think we can do this for a lot of people." So we set up a scheme for accident damage for race and rally cars. And we set up one for career ending or disability and accident and health for athletes and drivers. And it went from there. And Tim's children went to the same school as Bernie, but he'd met Bernie when he was going off on his Formula One trips. And he introduced him to Max Mosley at the FIA at the time. Yep. And I helped write the policy wordings for the FIA and governing body insurances back in the day, and managed those for 25, 30 years. So I had spent a lot of time around the elite part of motorsport, but also bottom up as well. You know, from karting and all the club racing in the UK and across Europe, we've touched it all. And there's been one person that's been speeding around in cars or on aeroplanes, going to drum up the business, which I loved. And I've made a lot of friends. You know, all of the Brat Pack are all my friends.
You must have some stories there. Yes. I mean, the amount of experiences and people you met. Can you elaborate?
Well, I remember I work as giving advice and manage risk for all these people. Sure. I'm not a sponsor, so we have bought some tyres and cars and engines in our time to help the community, and we've done a lot in the early days. But Bernie's an amazing marketeer. He's very loyal, and he was. And I've been part of that growing up, and I thought he was magnificent in what he did. You know, he's got that twinkle in his eye, and he can be controversial. We all know that. It's all in the public domain. But We worked very hard and did a lot for Formula One, because the insurances are exactly the same, just on a different scale, whether it's Formula One or they need, and it's complex because of the tracks and the rights holders, the governing bodies, the teams, the drivers, the equipment. So there's lots of things in there, and we've done a good job, and we pay claims well, and some of them have been very tricky. So yes, I've got a lot of stories. But whenever I went to Bernie's office, even today, if he walked into this room, he'd make my tummy turn and make me nervous. And I think he knows that.
It's like a presence about him.
Yes, he has. For me, because it was the mainstay of our business and what we built around that. And you can't go and talk about it and gossip, because your game would be over. So we're very quiet and humble about what we do. Insurance is pretty dull, unless you sort of turn ahead and say, what do you do? I do motorsport insurance. Oh, do you know? And it's extraordinary. You can always tell a lovely story. But he used to always come into his offices whenever we were having a meeting, always poke his head in the door to see who was on his premises, every time. And it became a game that he'd look at me and he knew I'd be nervous, and he'd say, what's happening? And I would say, in the world in general, Bernie, or in insurance? And he'd say, tell me what you want to tell me. So I'd get all nervous and flustered. And one day I said, oh, we're just about to renew your yacht insurance, Bernie. Good, he said. And I always remember that one because it fell due on my birthday, actually, each year. And he said, good, have you insured it properly? And I said, oh, yes, of course. He said, good, because I'm going to sink it at the weekend and buy a new one. And I'm not sure.
You can't tell me that.
Oh, and I'm not sure whether he meant it or not. And I just went, okay, all right. And he'd go, right, have a good meeting, and off he'd go. But it was funny. So that's the sort of anecdotal thing that he would do. But he was incredibly loyal, and Tim Clues, worked very hard across all of the teams and drivers and things to build with me and a team. It's not about one person. We know that old cliche. It is about a team.
Yeah.
And I was behind the scenes and not known in Formula One for 20 years. Tim did all the front of house, and I did everything else and built the teams, and that's how it should be. And then you wait for your turn to say, I can take this on. So that's where we are.
I love that. I mentioned the term glass ceilings earlier,
Yes.
and I asked it in a question that wasn't covered. At that point, and where you are now as well, you have gone through glass ceilings that other women in business have not been able to. You refer a lot to the team, which tells me that you're probably well respected, well liked about the people around the people you work with. What have you done to be able to make it easier for other women to come through to C-suite roles and ultimately in business?
What have I done personally? No one person can change that. Insurance is male-dominated. Sport is generally male-dominated, although that we've seen the sea change there with women's sport and the audiences that's attracting and commercial propositions. But in insurance, it's still tricky. We have to make insurance interesting for women, because still, even the firm I work for, who are very good at I&D, and they're a great brand, third largest broker in the world. And they have to break down the barriers that women can become front of house, and quickly. And they are, though I've even been on a call this morning where the statistics show we are producing, of all the recent producer roles, a third are women. It's fantastic.
Great.
And so I help with that. I mentor at work, and I love doing that. It's about succession. Some will say we haven't been great at succession because I'm a strong character and I love it, and we've kept all these accounts without any break for decades, so we must be doing something right. And the team, we climb the mountain together, but there has to be a leader. There comes a point now where I have to let go, have to slow down, and the succession comes through, the men and the women and the youngsters. But it's not easy in sport and entertainment, because it is male-dominated. It incites passion, which we love. But the barriers are being broken down. So mentoring, we need more role models. I can light up a room. I love connecting people, as I said at the beginning.
I can tell you're great at that. Yeah.
I know when the right people should be together. I don't know if it's just a gift or a knack or something that one learns over such a long time, but I really love doing that.
Yeah. No, I ask you because I've got two daughters growing up that want to make a difference in the world. They're being shown that entrepreneurial side through me and others. But there's clearly been stigma and, male chauvinistic behaviour in business and so on. Have you had a direct experience of that? Have you had, examples where, that's not a job for women sort of thing? Has that come your way?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And I would be lying if I said it didn't. But yeah, I have been fortunate enough to have grown up in a very small firm, to then asked if I could have some equity in that firm and pay for it, to which the answer was no, but you can buy the entire shareholding, which is a bit of a shock. So my then business partner, who ran our general commercial office, where we sent all of the sponsors and the corporate business from the sports people at the end of the M40 back in the day, and we went to try and raise the funds that Mr. Clues asked us to raise. And that was in itself quite tricky at a young age, to go and present to retail banks or equity partners when insurance was not something anybody wanted to invest in back in those days, in the early 90s. Took 2.5 years, and we did. And somebody went, "We love your story, we're going to back you." And it was all a bit of a whirlwind then. And I don't think Tim thought we would do it, but he gave us the opportunity, and the rest again is history. And it grew like gangbusters, and we brought women through the firm. Your two girls are at that age, the Generation Z, I think one calls it.
Sure.
And they are a different breed of girls and boys. They're strong. They're confident. I don't know if that's the characters
I'd
of your
agree.
two. And they know what they want. So that's really good for all of the industries that are open to them, including those that generally are male dominated. And it's not just banking and insurance, but there's two things. One, we have to make it accessible and interesting for them. And that is happening across our industry, broking, underwriting. The big firms are trying to buy into that. It takes time, doesn't happen overnight. But other industries where it's mostly male dominated, including sport, but there's a lot of jobs opening and university courses, but they will do well. And they can go for anything, because I did against the odds. So now when the odds aren't so great, I think they should follow those dreams. And I would say, find them some mentors. Open them to people that have done it. And there's men as well that have bucked the trend. Yeah,
I'm doing that now with you. No, inspiring them is important. And I think, women like you have actually, trailblazed something that allows these girls to grow up and be ambitious and not feel like there's anything stopping them. You mentioned that you're a mum, 17-year-old boy.
Yep.
Career came first. How have you juggled, and how do you juggle the whole work, life, family balance?
Well, I do. And people think I'm mad because I do juggle a lot. And I think I'm the exception rather than the rule to that. But I know my limits. But overarching, of course, is the support that I have, the old cliche of my family, and particularly my husband. He allows me to be me. He knew who I was, what I was. He worked in our firm. So I was running the firm and he's an employee. And he's a very educated, fine man. He works in the A&H market in insurance. He looks after all the driver and Formula One insurances. He does a great job and he's comfortable with that. So he allows me to be me. I allow him to be him, and it works really well. So that support. I did have some health issues coming up to that and worked through those. But with all things in life with me, I just hit it head on. Significant health issues, and must know what I'm talking about. And I got through that, and I'm still here. So that took over my 30s, and whether that was stress of doing so much so fast and being so ambitious, maybe part of it, I don't know. But having a great support network around one and the right positive mental attitude, I think helps with all of those things, including to this day juggling our home, being a good wife, cooking, cleaning, all of that, plus being a mum. Toby is a wonderful young man and he's got a great group of friends. He's a rugby player, works hard at that. And so I think that helps too.
We're filming in the Jack office, JAAQ, the mental health social media platform. What are your thoughts on Jack?
I hadn't heard of Jack until you mentioned it to me a week or so ago. I think it's a moment in time. It's now. I think it's fantastic. We know all about mental health in all its guises that affects everybody, me included. And I think it's a great initiative. I'd like to know more about it. I've actually sent it on to my friends who are fascinated by it. It can only be a good thing. And if that means that people that, particularly Brits, I think, struggle, and we know that, to talk about mental health issues, whatever they are, and there's plenty in the long list of things, have that opportunity to see that role models or people in sport or from TV or celebrities tell their story, it normalises them and it makes them feel better immediately. You know, is it the modern days picking up the phone to the Samaritans? I think it's a lot more than that, but I think it can only be a good thing.
Yeah. What works for you in terms of the physical and mental health fitness? I use the both physical and mental because you mentioned mindset. You know, what time did you spend on that? And just in terms of all the different things you can actually do, I'd love to know the things that have actually worked for you and that you still practice.
Well, there's lots of ways of keeping one's fitness physically and mentally in place, and ice baths aren't for me. Yoga,
I think all the sports people around you, there's ice baths, there's yoga, there's ice baths, Formula 1 in particular, right?
You do now. The ice baths now you see on TikTok and Insta with the George Russell and Lewis chatting away in ice baths, and it's the new thing, but maybe not so new. But no, it's the one thing that always gets put top of the list, and by the end of the day, it's the bottom of the list. So there has to be more of a work-life balance. But I think doing things that make me happy, whether that's work-related or personally, keep me mentally fit. I have a great group of friends, so I socialise, I travel, I love being by the sea, I jump in the sea whenever I can, but I don't make enough time to do that. I've tried it all. I've been to the gym, I've had the PT, and I'm at the age where, we talk about women's mental health and physical health and menopause and all of that, so I've been through all of that, and I don't know, maybe I'm just slightly different because I just crack on with it. And I've had all of those symptoms and still go through that. But firms and work are much better at that with women as well. But personally, I should do more. I've got a son and a husband who are fitness fanatics. But just about walking the dog and occasionally going to a class with my mates is the extent of my exercise right now.
Yeah, there's a real feeling of resilience coming across from you. You exude it in a good way.
Thank you.
I'd love to know what your definition of success is.
I think over a period of time, we all have dark moments, and I've had them, and difficult moments. But if it's mostly good and you can make that happen to whatever that ambition is, and it's to a lesser or greater degree from everyone. I just happen to want to bang the lights out and, as your phrase, smash the glass ceiling. And I've done that, I think, in a fair way with the right people around me. Success isn't all about finance. That comes with your ambition and how hard you work and how well you do it and learning by one's mistakes. And I've made plenty of those in 40 years. And you think about that and you bring people in to ask why that might have gone wrong or why that wasn't so successful, and you go again. So success for me is having a balanced, as happy a life as you can. The world is a very odd, fast-paced life now, and with the advent of technology, 10, 15 years ago, that we all know about, I think that it contributes to people's success or failure. Moving with the times, but surround yourself with really good people and people that radiate you.
Yes, I can tell that, and I can imagine you bring that out of people. And actually, just the very fact that you touched on the fact that to be successful, you have to have the failures and you learn from them and actually share that.
You do.
So many people are afraid of failing and then
or think that if and if they fail, that's it, game over. You have to have a lot of energy, but the key is also having the right people that you're not afraid to ask, and I think that has been the thread and theme from my early days.
You mentioned technology in the last conversation there. AI. I'm interested to know your thoughts on the fact there's a lot of people that are embracing it, excited about it, scared of it in the insurance side of things.
Yeah.
How do you protect yourself? How do you prepare yourself? Because it's just an ever-moving...
Is it going to take over human life roles as we know it? Not in my lifetime. But we all, our firm is embracing it. I just about scratched the surface to understanding about it because it's in one's face a lot now.
Sure.
I think we can't dismiss it. But it's a bit like the electric car thing, isn't it? That was, everybody's going to be driving electric cars by now. I'm not sure that will happen, but you have to go with it to understand it and see where it goes. So I'm not an expert on that, but I think it will become quite a big part, and I think it will complicate life a little. Yeah. Depending on education, schools, examinations.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's very early days for that.
Is there one sport? Because it's very clear you're passionate about a lot of sports you've played, the armchair side of things. I'm the same. Is there one sport in your professional role that you would love to be involved in, and are you already involved in it?
Well, given how much time motorsport and Formula One takes up, is there another sport I'd like to be involved in? Women's football. I think that is going to be a game changer.
It's huge now.
Sport has become even more, and exclude men's football, which we know is very commercial and has been for 20 odd years, and what goes on there. But women's sport will catch up. Not to that level, would be my view, but it's a good proposition for people to trumpet their brands and be involved and entertain clients, etc. But I think women's sport is fantastic to watch, as is women's rugby, actually. It's a different game to men's. We would love to see a woman in Formula One, but we're involved with that with Susie Wolff and Formula One Academy and all of those good things. And there are other people doing things as well. So women's football I love. I'm at the opening game of Chelsea versus Spurs on Sunday, first time at Stamford Bridge, but they do it differently as well. So yes, I'd like to be involved with that. I'm sure the firm I work for would also like to be involved in that. But since the World Cup, European Cup, the Lionesses, the value for a commercial value has obviously gone up considerably.
Huge, yes. But it's timing. But I just feel that there's massive momentum with the Lionesses and women coming into Formula One. I mean, I'd love to see a woman on the racetrack. It's been talked about for years.
Jess Hawkins drove the Aston Martin this week, so that's a good thing. Yeah. And what Formula One and Susie and W Series did before, it's highlighting it and it's gathering momentum. But it's physicality is a big thing, you see, and strength. So everybody will work on that, and it will come. Yeah. It's like jockeys, isn't it? Look how Rachel Blackmore and Holly have done so well. But it's coming. Yes, you asked. I digress. You asked. Women's football, I think, is a great thing just to watch. My husband doesn't particularly watch football. It's the wrong shaped ball, but he loves watching women's football. Yeah. And I think it's very exciting, and it brings families. It does. It's an entertainment piece, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it's been huge, and I think.
Do your girls like football?
Yeah, they do. They love playing it, and what we haven't done, because I'm not a football supporter myself of any teams. I think if you get brought up around watching football, that culture's not in my. Yeah,
it's very tribal football.
I get that, and I've been around many people that have, and at previous times in my life, I've really followed England. I lost my way a little bit with the England football team. The sort of lack of. Well, not just the success, but that sort of desire. You could just feel there was, not enough passion involved. And whereas watching an England rugby game, love it. Just, But no, I've really enjoyed talking to you, Karen. We've run out of time for me to talk to you about anything else, but thank you so much for making time to talk to me today.
It's really kind of you to invite me in. Thank you very much. Thank you.